everybody. We're going to get started now. My name is Ellie Lanier. I am currently serving as Associate Dean over our clinical and experiential learning programs at UGA Law. This is my partner in crime, Leslie Grove, and let them your title.
Web developer, basically.
And awesome problem solver, maven, extraordinaire. And I'm gonna have her do more of the talking. This is a tech session and not a teaching session. But I'm gonna key up for you before we get going. I just want to apologize. They didn't have a cornball, but I'm a very corny person, and so when Leslie told me the title of this, I got all over the Jimi Hendrix thing, but Jimi Hendrix lyrics, and it's totally corny, but that's just who I am, and so there'll be some corny aspects to our PowerPoint. Before we get going, we just want to do a quick check, especially since it's a small group, and see who's here and what you want to get out of the session, because that way we will make sure that we're meeting your expectations. So if you're tech people who know about Drupal and want to learn how to do these timesheets.
Who's primarily an IT person? Okay.
Okay.
I'm not, but I want to learn about it.
Okay. Faculty who teach in experiential learning type things, or, okay.
Cool.
Yay. The library people. Yay. Okay. And how about everybody? Pardon?
I'm with the library.
Library? All right, we got everybody.
A good
Okay,
mix.
great. That's a good mix. I'm going to kick it off, and then I'm going to explain kind of why we like this. All right, so hey Joe, where are you going? I'm a big one about telling you why we're doing it and where we're going. We sort of started this because of ABA rules for clinics and experiential learning, for timekeeping, and actually getting down here with some of these standards for the additional standards for field placement. That may come down the road with what we put together, with what Leslie's put together for us. But this is the one. This determination of credit hours for coursework from the faculty side is really a gnarly problem. We've got it figured out that it's 42.5 hours of work per every credit that you have, but for some of us that teach classes that involve a range, so you could take the class for 2 credits, you could take the class for up to 6 credits. And so for people who are law school teachers, we don't become law school teachers because we know math very well. And keeping track of student time is a real hassle for us. And so this is the one that that what Leslie developed helps us solve and track this to make sure that we are appropriately tracking the time. I work with 18 different clinics and field placements, and when we started, everybody did things their own way. So and I still kind of have some programs where they are having students submit hard copies of timesheets, and then I have others where they're using Clio or a law practice management software, and then everybody does it all different ways. And and some of our clinics don't even have students keep time at all. I'm not sure how they're actually going to help comply. I think that one that isn't doing that in our school is the appellate litigation one, which is a year-long program, and they spend so much time. I mean, I think that's a very heavy timekeeping. But some of them don't have students keep time at all. I have a feeling they've calculated a way that they can document what students are doing, and if not, we'll be talking about it. So that's how we've been doing it in the past. We want to be able to, these are some of the benefits of our current system. And I definitely wanted to remove the burden from administrative staff for collecting timesheets and kind of empower the students to just, when they get out and practice, they're going to be having to track their own time, and helping them to be accountable from the beginning. is very important. I have 51st Anniversary. That's actually a Jimi Hendrix song title. I wasn't familiar with that song, but we are celebrating the 51st anniversary of our first law clinic at UGA. And so I thought, kind of being corny, but it fit. This is what it looks like from the clinicians' side.
Actually, this one is a student.
This is what it looks like from the
Redacted
students.
version of the student page there, where they can enter a new amount of time worked and description, and then they have to click, I confirm that this information complies with the requirements of the blah blah, and then there's a view of their previous entries. So that's the student point of view.
And one of the things that we like about this, all right, you can kind of see up there, this is for summer work in our Veterans Legal Clinic, where they're basically working full days. So these students aren't going to other classes and doing clinic hours as they can. And then one of the ways where we want to go with this is kind of start tracking what the matters are so that we can actually report out at the end of the semester, not only on the inputs, like students provided 100,000 hours over this last year of service to veterans through this clinic, but also the types of things that they do. But that's really a dream in a little glimmer in our eye right now. And then this is what the faculty member would see.
Right.
So you'd see the duration, the student name, the description of the work, and the date that they worked, and then maintain that or review it to see whether they're doing what they committed to do when they started the clinic.
And you can sort this by student or look at individual students. It's, the sum of hours at the bottom there, just laid out in like an Excel spreadsheet, basically.
So you download that to an Excel spreadsheet, is that the way, or upload or whatever?
Well, yeah, I guess you could copy and paste it. We don't have a download method, but that's a good idea.
Oh.
I like that.
So I think that's where I hand it
So
off to
yes, so we've been using this system for a couple of years now, for some of our clinics, not all. It's in Drupal 7. It's part of the student portal that we have, that we've been using for several years in Drupal 7. Well, Drupal 7. And so it was time to update the student portal to Drupal 8. We're learning about that. And is anyone here currently using Drupal 8? Anybody using Drupal 7? All right, so you're looking at migrating sometime soon? No? Other solutions, maybe.
Maybe other solutions.
Yes, all right. Well, we're kind of committed to Drupal, so we're looking at migrating to Drupal 8 soon. So I thought as a first project to move the student portal, I would go ahead and do the timesheets, and then perhaps I could put it into some kind of package that we could share with other schools that would be easy enough to install for people who weren't very technical. So that was the dream. That was why I agreed to come here and talk and present this. So my first thought was, let's make a distribution. Drupal distribution, they were more common in Drupal 7 for sure. It's basically a box of everything you need for a specific kind of Drupal site, like e-commerce. There's one for conference organizing. It contains pretty much all of the code, just and you can download them from Drupal.org and just install them, and it's supposed to be easy. Part of that picture, this is getting into a little more technical part here. The main part of the distribution is what's called an installation profile. Those of you who have installed any kind of Drupal should be familiar with this screen. or perhaps this is only coming up at 8, where you can select if you want a standard install or a minimal install. I think there's something like that with 7. And on the server, here's what it looks like, the file structure. Basically, my little installation profile called Experiential lives within a folder called profiles that lives within the document root, which is usually called web. So that's where you would find these if you had custom ones. So this is a custom installation profile that I created, and there's some really good instructions on creating these on the Drupal.org. That they've got going. The distribution part, not so much, but I'll come back to that. But first, let's demo this installation profile that I've created, and let's hope that everything goes right, because things always go right with the live demo. So we have here a server that is ready to go. It had the file structure we just looked at. The installation profile is ready to go, and I've gone to the website, and we're just going to install it. There's an error, of course, but we can continue. Fewer errors than before. The database name, what did I decide to make it? Wait a minute. I think it's something like Drupal, Experiential. Let me try to spell that. And then user is Drupal. All right, we don't need advanced options. Okay, now it's installing a bunch of modules. While this is installing modules, I'll just say there were a couple of interesting challenges for putting together this installation profile. One is I wanted it to be as easy as possible for non-technical users. So with Drupal 8, a lot of modules aren't quite ready. There are a lot that are, and they're generally, from what I've seen, a little more complex than their Drupal 7 versions, but also more powerful. That's huge generalization, but that's just what I've seen. So I chose some smaller modules that aren't very well supported, but got the job done. So if somebody wanted to really build this kind of timesheet system, I could recommend different modules for you to use if you've got somebody technical maintaining it. But for now, so that was one of the challenges. Another challenge is I wanted to create this all in configuration files. So there's actually nothing in the database when you start out. So we didn't have to have any scripts or installers. It's just all in the configuration files. If you looked at a Drupal 8 installation, that's all done in YAML file format now. So basically, all the information to create this is in YAML files. So site name, I think I called it, timesheets, yes.
So while she's filling this in, I'll tell you where the impetus came from for this was we happened to be sitting together at what was it called, Externships 9 conference, which by chance was at the University of Georgia Law School, and we're sitting in the back listening to the externship supervisors talk about how they track time, and nobody was happy with the system they used. The people who used Simplicity were saying, well, we like this, but we don't like this, and the students like this, and there just didn't seem to be a really good, easy one. And we just decided, let's see if we can figure something out that's simple enough that it'll get the job done for us. And give us what we need. So.
Okay. So
And she made it happen.
Drupal says, congratulations, you installed Experiential Learning Timesheets distribution. So now what? So let's, I've prepared 3 CSV files that contain the data for like a hypothetical, let's say, summer courses. We just have a few students. and a few professors and a few courses. So let's start with creating our users. We're going to import them. First of all, we want to do the faculty. I'll just make something up for that. We want to make sure they're active. We're going to import all the fields. And maybe put these on the desktop.
Oh, no,
Downloads, I bet.
Yeah, they'll be in downloads, they're
Okay.
minimized at the top.
All right, downloads, there we go. All right, it's faculty. Okay. All right, so we got some faculty. Let's go ahead and import the students. This time we want students. And active. We want all, come on, we want all fields. There we go. Students. All right, so there's all our users. We have some students, some faculty. Great, okay, so now we need some courses. That is over here in content import, another small, not very well maintained module, but we're gonna use it because it's easy. Let's import some experiential courses. And there we have courses. You can also download a sample if you want to see what the fields are. I kind of skipped over that, but let's take a quick look. So these are the fields that we're, oops, there we go, that we're importing, and hopefully you can get your database person to make you some nice spreadsheets with all these fields. Okay, let's get out of that. And we'll import that file to create the courses. All right, so we have some courses. And that's it for the data that you need to get started. So let's pretend like we're a student and go ahead and say we worked today and we want to log that time. I'm using something called Masquerade module that's been around for a while. It's just super handy for like testing or troubleshooting. You can switch over to be another user and then switch back very easily. Let's be this student. Oh great, we're not supposed to see that. Awesome. That's fun. Okay, let's go timesheets. All right, well this is better. So, student's timesheet, nothing there yet. We'll enter some time. It's a little funky right now, that ought to be automatically populated, but it isn't, but perhaps in a future version we'll fix that. We'll say we did things. All right. And then I'm just walking through this just to show you, it's just super easy. Let's check in as a professor real quick.
And here's where I'm typing. Dear Ms. Grove, will you please explain which things specifically you did on June 6th?
Right, yeah, did things. Okay, so, clearly there would be more entries. You'd be able to, sort if we had things to sort. So that's it, and it's just super simple. So that's it for the demo. So moving forward, let's see what we want to slide. There we go. Real quick, if you're interested in modules, we used the ones at the top there are very common. Masquerade I mentioned. There's one called Mail Control. Oddly, when you install Drupal 8, if you create users like I just did, and you input real emails, Drupal will email them and say, hey, you have an account. Don't know why that's the default, but it is. Guess how I found out. So this module enables you to turn off that functionality. If Views aggregator is what we use to get the sum of the hours column. And these are the import modules. And then front page is just a little module that you can use to say, the faculty and the students have see a different page when they go to the home page. So back to the question of making a distribution. We live in interesting times in Drupal because we're sort of between deprecated Drupal 7 ways to do things and not quite ready Drupal 8 ways to do things in some areas like this one. So the current instructions on Drupal.org for how to build a distribution, basically it's kind of a hacky workaround. You can use an old version of Drush, which doesn't work with Drupal 8, but then you can make a file, and it just seemed kind of hacky, so I didn't plow through that. Instead, we're focused on Composer, which is basically the best practices, PHP dependency manager. You can do all kinds of stuff with Composer in Drupal and should. This is just the way to do things now. It's like mostly command line, and it's very powerful. So, if you haven't installed Drupal 8 and would like to, these are just very brief slides about that. There's some prerequisites. If you'd like to get this later, this is exactly how you create the database. You need Composer, of course. We recommend PHP 7.1 or later. And then this is the command to install it. Again, it's a command line using Composer. That's just best practices. To do updates, again, command line using Composer. We still use Drush for a lot of things. And so looking forward, my colleague back in Athens right now, Victor, hi if you're watching, has been working on basically making an installer using Composer instead of using the old deprecated Drupal 7 way to do it. So he has stepped in. I am happy to get more help if anybody wants to help. I would like for this to grow into a lovely open source project that we can all share. And so watch this space for future developments. And my email is elgrove@uj.edu. Please email if you'd like a download of the installation profile, or if you'd like to help, or if you have suggestions or questions, feel free to email.
Oh, okay.
Back to Ellie.
I'm back up again, and I have to admit, I really didn't understand, I would say a good 2/3 of what Leslie just talked about. But the good news is I don't really need to. All I really need to do is think about why we want to collect it and what we want to do with it. And so going down down the highway, down our highway, I really want, and I in fact told some of my colleagues yesterday, that come commencement time, when I have to stand up, or when I get to stand up and talk about our experiential learning programs, I'd love to be able to say with confidence the exact number of hours that students have donated, the types of impact, the activities, how many, consultations with veterans, how much money was recovered on behalf, what were the case results, what were the outcomes for clients. My clinic is a mediation clinic, and for me, the number of people who are retaining shelter as a result of a mediator working with the low-income client who's about to be evicted and the landlord and working something out where they can stay in the unit, that really is a nice story to tell. That's not just about, students love clinics. It really can help us get more grants to expand for future clinics, and it tells a story in a way that I think is more compelling than just saying, let me tell you about this one person. It really kind of can help us capture. So we hope to be able to track, and Leslie was saying that there's a taxonomy within Drupal, so that if we as clinicians can come up with kind of the categories, which we're in the process of doing, that Drupal can actually help prompt that. You want to say a little about that?
It's the, those of you who are familiar with Drupal know about the taxonomy system. It's basically a way of tagging content. It's built in, and you can either say, these are the tags you can use, select from these, or you can have what's called free tagging and just type in whatever you want, and if it doesn't exist, it'll create a new tag, or it will, if you start typing, it'll like prompt you, like, were you trying to type this word, that kind of thing. You've seen that for like auto-suggesting. Anyway, so again, from talking with Ellie this morning and learning more about, her needs, I'm like, oh, well, this is Drupal out of the box, so let's do it, so it helps to talk.
It definitely does. So we have a grants person who's always looking for ways we can collaborate with other parts of the university, and, being able to really show that impact and the result of what we're doing is important. And we do it right now 18, 17 different ways. And, my job is a little bit like herding cats, because the people I work with all love the way that they've been doing it, and they've been doing it that same way. For me, one of the beautiful aspects of this is that it's giving the students the agency. They're the ones that are inputting their time and the activities that they're doing, and it kind of takes the clinicians and the admin folks out of it a little bit. A lot of our clinics now have donors, so the Veterans Legal Clinic had a big donor, and so it would be really lovely to be able to just pull out and report to that. The same way we have a clinic that helps survivors of child sexual assault, being able to just pull out for that one. And then AALS last year just asked us to estimate. They said, we don't really care, it doesn't have to be accurate, but can you just eyeball it? And I'd rather not eyeball it and guess. I'd rather be able to say, we can do this. One of the things that we realized is that it does kind of disappear at the end, right now, at the end of each semester. So one thing that I want to be sure is that, so that we let Leslie move on to create new wonderful things and not have to go back and look for old data, is get the team trained to just download and track that for the ABA for whenever our next inspection comes, so that they can demonstrate that they actually are keeping track of the student hours and that the students are working appropriate hours and field placements for the credits they get. We know they are doing way more than the minimal requirement, but it helps to be able to show it.
And once we're in the new system, it should just be saved in the database. But I do love the suggestion earlier about making a download to Excel version or button. Yes, I like it. So try to accomplish that.
So I think that's kind of our last part of content. But I'd like to know what y'all are doing now, because I think this is an opportunity for us to learn from you as well. So, you're in here for a reason. So what did you hope to learn about this, and are you doing this in a different way that we might want to consider and adapt what we're doing?
I have really nothing to do with it. We use Clio in the clinics, so I suspect that's how they're keeping track. What are the law firms using?
I think Clio.
A lot of them, and I came from a legal services background, so they had a bunch of different, different software programs that were designed for that. And that was one of the things that kind of putting an overlay. We had case closing codes and those kinds of things, and I don't think that the folks using Clio at our school are using those closing codes. I think they're just using them to kind of track activity. So,
Maybe if you could coordinate or parallel how they will actually use it in practice more,
yeah,
then they would feel more comfortable. They're going to have to keep track of their time in the real world.
They really are.
Yeah, they
Billable
really
hours, billable hours, and yeah, So, and I've kind of got that balancing act with some clinicians who are using hard copies of files and aren't even using case management software at all yet, so.
So, I was speaking with the clinic administrator, and in that space, they track the pro bono and the externship and the clinical hours, and it's all put into an Excel spreadsheet. So it's not at all convenient, and there's a lot of information basically coming everywhere from, they put it into whatever case management, and the different clinics, different faculty use different things. And then it comes to this administrator, and she's like, I have to put it all somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's why I came here, because I'm like, okay, if there's a web interface that at least the faculty and the students could use in one place, it would make everybody's life a lot easier, especially when you kind of sprinkle in the pro bono it's not a class, right? It's a requirement for graduation, so it's from day 1 through 3L, 4L year. Anyway, so that's why I'm here. We're not a Drupal house, but you know, it's there. It's an opportunity. We do have a web developer, so
Cool.
Now, I think there's no reason why you couldn't create one for pro bono hours as well. To track those and give the students agency, and then whoever is managing that program could download.
yeah, it seems
all of
like it's
those.
very user friendly, and the interface can be tweaked a little bit for the different, and just have it all in one place that then over time you can get the reports from.
The other kind of cool thing is that where it's housed is where students go for my classes. So, you know, they're pulling down information about my classes, and then they see, oh, my timesheets, you know, and that as a tab.
Do you have a student portal that they already use?
We're in, so there's so many, so for their classes, it's PSoft, which I guess is, what's that management solution? I just lost it. And that's where, you know, all of their classes and all of that shows up, but nothing else is linked in there.
Okay. I was just thinking if you had like a single sign-on type system, you know, like we use CAS at UGA, and there's a Drupal module to do CAS. I don't have it set up yet with the Drupal 8, but that's what we're using in 7. So theoretically, if they were signed in one place, they could automatically be signed in to Drupal, and the Drupal would know what their username was if you use consistent usernames. Just a thought. But if you've got a web person, please feel free
I mean,
to
like
email
she
me.
was saying, I understand what you're saying, and I utilize the single sign-on and know the differences in that, but it's not, like, I can't implement it. I don't have that skill set. But definitely, if it supports a single sign-on environment, we're all about that. Like,
Or it's
definitely.
easy enough to just create, Drupal can actually just email them and say, reset your password.
Exactly.
You just have another username and password to maintain, but it's not that big of a deal.
Just one more.
Just one more.
Just add it to the list.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, our students have to maintain about 7 different logins, just because of the way library resources are and how some of them don't have a single sign-on, and there's, there's nothing I can do about it. So, but this is great. I think if we could get it going, and
wish we
open
were
source
ready.
is just so awesome.
I have hope. So.
It's very nice of you.
Oh, well.
It's just a great simple tool.
I think so too, and we've been piloting it and piloting some other things that we don't have here right now. But the other thing that Leslie's helped us with is using a similar system is just a way to apply for clinics. It used to be that we had 17 different application processes depending on what clinic you were applying for, and we all got together and just said, okay, here's the one sheet of things that we want to know, their statement of interest, and then clinicians can ask for additional things for their particular clinic. Maybe they want to know something else, but then that easily gets pulled down, and so students don't have to go do different things. And then we can easily see which students have applied to multiple clinics and try and get them into the into the best fit, and who's applied and hasn't gotten into one yet. And then we've got some that are kind of more general poverty law clinics that they may be interested in, and so just a lot of this really is coming from trying to improve the student experience as much as anything.
Standardize it to a certain point and then ask, specific questions for certain type clinics.
That's
But
exactly,
Yeah.
it should be pretty standard.
Right.
You're applying for the work at a clinic.
Yeah.
Right.
Upload your resume,
Yeah, yeah.
upload letters of interest or whatever they.
And that part can be used by all the clinics, so they don't have to do it 5 times.
Yep, and that's what we did, one pilot for summer semester of doing it that way, and we're close to, I think, being able to.
We'll see. We'll either use that or simplicity. We'll find out. One of the two. Any other questions at all? We've left way too much time for questions.
So what are others of you using to track student time for experiential classes, and does it work?
Our group, so I'm here because my colleagues asked me to come to see, but each of our clinics has a different method.
Yeah.
Our pro bono hours are all over the place. Our director for externships has a different method, and so we're looking for something better. So, and it's kind of a mess, and it's, you ask when you want to go do a report to get things for donors, we wanted to make a presentation for a donor. It was very difficult to pull together the data, so.
Can maybe you get that person at the top, I'm gonna say maybe the dean, that he says, you all have to
That's
have the same
Well, that's what
format.
I'm thinking, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta come
If I attended this really would do.
Because it's stupid to have 18 different ways
It
to
is.
do things. It's just more work for everybody.
It is, but I'll tell you what a colleague just said to me yesterday. Well, we aren't one island. We're these multiple islands in an archipelago, and we like to have our, individual way.
Well, you're about to be invaded by the dean.
Right, and here I am, saying, oh, we need to standardize, which, to them is
But if they have a
stomping
section
on
where they
their
can be
creativity.
specialized in it, fine, but the basic information should not.
Exactly. So, I think framing it too in terms of the student experience,
What's the
And
student-centered
then-
stuff? Isn't it like,
and then kind of the what's in it for us. You can then easily generate a report that could be shared with donors or, so it's not just, oh, here she goes, she's trying to make us all do the same thing, and it's the why, it's not the what, it's the why. It's because this will actually help down the road. And for me, some aspects of it, in addition to identifying a student who may be having some trouble, or, I need to maybe work with them a little bit more to be sure that they're getting their hours, and somebody can pop up on my radar screen who might need a little extra attention. It can also kind of help us understand and use the data to inform, all right, if we know that, for example, that when people get their tax refund checks, or right before those refund checks, every February where people are anticipating it, these kinds of issues are popping up, we can use that data to inform how we're teaching students and preparing additional information for our potential clients, about the refund loans or whatever the topic may be. It almost doesn't matter what the topic is. It's being able to gather information in a way that then we can use to help improve our service and help the students. So how about some of you guys in the back? You came in a little bit late. We didn't know. We went around and said what people's roles were and what they hope to get out of it. And we want to make sure that since we have time, we're letting everybody who has some information to share it.
Yeah, our clinic's using Clio right now. In many ways, I'm interested in this class, in this session, I try to teach timesheets in my legal research class.
Mm.
And I just wanted to see what you were doing in order to see if there's some way I could benefit that as far as how I'm trying to do it in legal research.
Mhm. So in your class there, you're just showing them how to do it in Clio?
No, in Clio, I tried to set up a separate instance of Clio for my purposes of my class, and trying to get the licensing straightened out between the two separate branches was difficult. And so I ultimately gave up on it. I've also tried to use whatever West product is, I can't even name of it now. But again, licensing is difficult with that. Plus, it's for purposes of the research class, it's taking too much time for me to explain a course management system as part of a research class.
Right, right, and this would be great for just teaching somebody how to track their time and.
Well, even for research assignments, that's why I'm here too. It's like,
Yeah.
how much time did they use or allocate? And then even for planning purposes, if some students took way too long, you
Yeah.
can modify the assignment.
Yeah, so
So,
that's a really cool way of thinking about how you could use it as well. If it's
Yeah.
taking them a lot longer than you think to complete the task, then that either tells you
I
that
did
maybe
something
to
wrong, or they
explain
did
it a
something
little
wrong.
bit better, or give them more time to complete it, so, yeah, I hadn't
and if
even
you
thought
had
about
that
that.
documentation, you could figure that out.
And I like the idea you had earlier of making the interface look more like Clio, so that it's, if you can't use Clio for whatever reason, or whatever the, standard is.
So
and
they'll have
law
some
firms.
familiarity when they transition out of the law school.
Yeah, so I'd be interested in learning more about that.
Yeah, and we had that same problem when I guess we added a clinic, or someone wanted to use Clio who wasn't using Clio, and all of a sudden when we went to get that new license, not the law school, but the big UGA vendor people somehow got wind, even though we were using a free thing, all of a sudden some red flags went off with the other part of the
Well, I tried
university.
to use it for my
and-
purposes
yeah.
too, and my clinician person said that, well, how are we gonna stop you from seeing the data that the clinic has? That's what was his concern, so I let it drop at that point.
Oh, and that there are, for ours, there are firewalls because there's a potential that we could have clinics representing both sides of it. So there are firewalls where they can't see each other's stuff. But one of the things that we're doing for that, because it kind of ticked me off when I heard that some of my colleagues were kicking out people who were either our partners from the library or our partners who weren't lawyers from other parts of the school. And so we just did a confidentiality contract, which says, I promise I may, learn something and I'm abiding. That's what we used to do with pro bono volunteers who were non-lawyers. So it didn't, I think just saying, oh, you can't see this is maybe not the,
Well, I don't think we had
Yes.
enough licenses too, so I just let it go. But-
yep, yeah. But there are a million ways to do it, but sometimes the easiest one,
Keep
or
it
the
simple.
simplest one is the best, the
Like I
free,
said
simple
in the
one.
proposal, is sometimes reinventing the wheel is the right answer. Yeah.
Just use the wheel you got.
But how about, we just still have a couple of minutes left. Anybody else using something that's better, or any problems that you think we should be aware of that you can see that we can't see from just trying to do a simple time tracking?
It's not a problem, but one thing when you were talking about integrating the application process, if you could have like an integration of prereqs, that would be cool. Like to make, especially since you could speak to the system where you can see in theory what the students have taken, to like inform, hey, you have obviously gotten an interest in criminal law. Maybe instead of doing an international law clinic, you should do this one. There's just something that was going through my head. Yeah, make it
Not sure how to
better.
implement that, but
Make it better so I can download it. It'll be great.
Or, the other thing that we've done is have them just upload their transcript. The unofficial redacted one, just to see the classes. Some of the clinicians want to know how well a student did in a particular class before they let them into a clinic. But that was another, but the aspect of uploading the transcripts, we realized that there were some FERPA things about doing that even if the student was uploading their own.
Then you just need them to sign away that FERPA. Just
Well, we had some issues with the larger university saying, you know, if your server has this data, then we have to have different security, you know, restrictions on it. So it was like, let's just find a way around that.
Yeah,
You know,
simple.
again, dealing
Simple.
with larger institution.
Well, they could self-report it,
Yeah.
and then if they lie, that's a bigger problem, but.
Or even just say, yeah, what classes have you taken that you know, think what might be relevant?
In
or
fact, I
that
think
you-
that's one of the questions somebody had in their
Yeah.
applications.
And then,
Yeah.
like, there might be prerequisites for certain clinics,
Yes,
so it's
there
like,
are.
if they don't check that box, the system should be able to say, they're going down that path.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That would be an easy way to handle it. Yeah.
For dreams. For
It's
ways
really
we-
cool. It's just really, it's nice to see a workable, simple solution.
So again, elgrove@uga.edu. And yeah, I'm happy for feedback or help. Yeah.
So you mentioned that long-term you're looking to modify this so that you keep the data historically. What happens now from semester to semester so you piloted it in the summer, what happens in the fall to the data that was in the summer and the data that will be collected in the fall?
Good question. Actually, so we've been using this, the timekeeping system we've been using for about a year. And the problem is I kept rewriting it. So we were like starting fresh each semester. And part of that is I was trying to use 777 modules that don't quite do the job, you know, and then I realized that, you know, I could, like I was looking for, surely there's like a timesheet module out there, you know, there's like 100 million modules, you know, but I couldn't find anything that quite did what we needed, so I decided we'll just build it from just pure Drupal content types, and it was easier than I thought it would be. So, but to your question, yeah, it's just poor management at this point is what's preventing us from having the historical data. It's in the database, but it's not easy for the faculty to get to it because the interface has changed every semester. So, but in the future, it will be
I don't know
easier.
if you could like tag a semester code on to
Well, right, there needs to be a field
Or
in that, on that content type, there needs to be a field, this is the semester, this is the year, that's just like hidden, you know, in the same way that the username should be hidden. Yeah, that would be the way to go, so.
Well, I didn't know that. I thought the answer is just tell the faculty members to, you know, download and keep a record
I like that too, though.
of what they have so that they don't have to go back and bother.
Best practices is to do both, right?
Exactly.
Keep the secret secret.
Yeah.
But we've been super happy with it. I can't tell you how easy it is from my perspective to just see the list of student names and the dates and times they worked and what they did. And then I line it up with some of their work product, and it really is, it's been terrific.
All right, well, thank you all for coming. Go listen to Jimi Hendrix. All right.
Yeah, and have a great break.
And thank you for not playing Jimi Hendrix, which would have caused trouble when we put this on YouTube.
Exactly. Exactly. It's still recording, but.
It is still recording.
All right, I need one more sticker, I'm done.
Thank you so much. Rachel and Jason, I think, are the next presenters. Stick around for a presentation from our other colleagues from EGA.
Yeah, typical. You know how they're so very hard. You can find this.
Okay. Like,
Right, yeah, something.
So that wasn't even there. Like, that was a really positive.
Leslie?
Yeah.
She'd ask me how I keep track of semesters for 200 law schools.
Oh my goodness.
The answer is not very well.
Oh, I can only imagine.
I have a little tiny little algorithm that like sort of like figures out where you are in the calendar and I do a best guess. But like it flips over at, does it flip over I think in mid-May from like spring to summer? And invariably I'll get somebody who like starts summer sessions in like the second, before the middle of May, or whose spring runs until the end of May. Like, what law schools are still going at the end of May, but some are.
Well,
Same thing for the fall and stuff.
With the, and just with our students, basically, they stop tracking one semester and then the next day they start tracking the next
Right,
semester.
exactly,
Because
yeah.
people are in different programs, so, yeah. Fortunately, we don't overlap.
Right, that works out. Yeah, and I don't know whether we'll do, we're just finishing up retheming Drupal 7 one last time. And then, what's it got, like 2 or 3 years, I think, on the end until end of life of Drupal 7.
Yeah.
And so we'll make the decision about whether or not we go to 8. It's hard because so much of like what we keep in Drupal is really sort of, like it doesn't need to be in Drupal. It's just like the platform that we, kind of wrapped it into, so.
Yeah.
And Drupal 8, well, Drupal 8 will require us to rewrite the approximately 24 custom modules I have. And I don't know if I want that kind of, I don't know if I want that kind of job security.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what we're gonna do about 8 yet. But
And,
we'll
right, and the writing the modules is all different.
yes, and the
It's like-
modules are completely different, and, so it just inevitably leads to the question of like, okay, do we want to stay with Drupal? And,
Yeah.
and then how long is it gonna take to do a migration? Although, and like I've had some like preliminary looks at it, and it's like, it's take at least a year, maybe less if we hire somebody, but
Yeah.
still gonna get us. See, and all that's going out over the web, so people.
Yeah, they're hearing the
Hey.
discussion.
What are they doing?
Thank you.